To Partido Reporma President and the rest of the Davao del Norte Reforma candidates, let me tell you this. I harbor no ill feelings towards you, and no matter how short-lived our alliance may be,
You heard presidential aspirant Senator Ping Lacson announcing that he is exiting Partido Reporma. That is after the political party made a big decision to endorse Vice President Leni Robredo instead. From here on, Lacson said he will be running as an independent candidate.
Partido Reporma President, former Speaker Pantaleon Alvarez, said that Robredo is the more realistic option at this point. Alvarez and Robredo do not have the smoothest of relationships, with ex-House Speaker filing an impeachment complaint against the Vice President. But the two said it's all water under the bridge now. Time for today's biggest headlines. I'm Gretchen Ho.
I'm Robbie Alampay. You're watching The Big Story. Let's start with Partido Reporma's surprise move. They are shifting support to Vice President Leni Robredo. But Senator Ping Lacson says there's more to the switch than just choosing the candidate who is more winnable.
He claims that it has something to do with releasing billions of pesos to fund the campaign of local candidates, something that he does not have. Mayan Los Baños with The Big Story.
today I officially announce my resignation as chairman and member of Partido ng Demokratikong Reporma, which effectively makes me an independent candidate for the presidency in the upcoming...
Senator Ping Lacson made the huge announcement on Thursday ahead of Partido Reporma's formal declaration that they will now be backing the presidential bid of Vice President Leni Robredo. Former Speaker Pantaleon Alvarez revived Partido Reporma in 2020 after exiting PDP Laban. The party later on carried Lacson as its standard bearer. In a statement, the party said Robredo is a more realistic option at this point. But in an exclusive interview, Lacson said funding for local candidates was a turning point.
Kala ko, believer sila sa principles ng party, sa ating advocacy. Pero kung ang pag-uusapan lang pala, dahil wala tayong maibigay na support, kasi ang laki ng hinihingi eh.
Billion, sir?
Almost a billion. So wala tayong bibigay. Let's tell them the truth.
According to Lacson, this was when Alvarez said local candidates should be allowed to endorse other presidential bids, which did not sit well with Lacson. Despite that, Lacson said he has no ill feelings for the former speaker.
I harbor no ill feelings towards you, and no matter how short-lived our alliance may be, I will keep praying for you and your families.
Though Lacson will no longer be running under the party, the COMELEC said they could not tag him as an independent candidate since they would have to go by his certificate of candidacy. For now, what is clear is that Lacson will continue with his presidential bid.
Matagal na nila ako inabandon.
Lacson's running mate Senate President Tito Soto was surprised with the turn of events, but maintained that nothing will change with his partnership with Lacson.
Perhaps that would be the best thing to do as far as my presidential candidate is concerned, because there was no formal or alliance forged anyway.
The Lacson-Soto tandem continues to receive endorsements, most recently from the Maranao Employees Business Association. Reporting for News 5, Mayan Los Baños, we are One News.
The spokesperson for Partido Reporma and around 60 of its chairmen and officers in Cavite followed Lacson in resigning from their posts. Former Magdalao Representative Ashley Acedillo said he is committed to supporting Lacson's presidential bid and will continue to serve as his spokesman. The chairman of the party's Cavite chapter, Attorney Rafael Rodriguez, shared the same sentiment. Its district and municipal chairmen left the party together. Cavite is the bailiwick of Senator Lacson.
These are the other big stories tonight. Despite Partido Reporma's push for a Leni-Tito tandem, Vice President Leni Robredo says she will stick with running mate Senator Kiko Pangilinan. Is this a step closer to endorsement? Malacanang says President Duterte recently met with frontrunner Ferdinand Marcos Jr. to talk about his experience as an outgoing chief executive. And a warm welcome was waiting for Labor leader Cal Leody in Iloilo, but coming from the supporters of his rival in the presidential race. More of these big stories after the break.
You're still watching The Big Story. I'm Robbie Alampay.
After the resignation of Senator Ping Lacson from Partido Reporma, the party shifts its support to Vice President Leni Robredo for president.
But more than getting the party support, Robredo believes the endorsement will boost their chances in the Davao region where she lost in 2016. To know more about this, we have mobile journalist Jacob Lazaro reporting live from Tagum City in Davao del Norte. Jacob, how much of a lift will Robredo expect from this endorsement?
Robbie, the VP believes this will give them some much-needed headway here in Davao, a known bailiwick of the Dutertes. Robredo acknowledged that she lost miserably in the region back in 2016. She says that with former Speaker Alvarez coming out to support her, as well as Governor Edwin Hubahib, other local officials might find the courage to follow suit and back her presidential bid. Let's hear more straight from the VP.
Kasi ano naman to eh, gano'n naman talaga yung laban. Pag nagsisimula ka na medyo dehado, it takes a lot of courage to come out in the open. And I'm just so thankful na Speaker Alvarez and the Governor has been very brave in doing this thing. Kasi ano talaga to, even the volunteers have been telling us na mabuti na lang na nag-support na si ganito kasi mas makakabuelo kami. So ano talaga, very grateful kami.
Robbie, Robredo says that she and Partido Reporma both want to fix the country through good governance. Gretchen, Robbie?
Jacob, we all know that Robredo and Alvarez do not have the cleanest of relationships. So does this mean they are sweeping all of this under the rug?
Gretchen, that was actually addressed in the press conference earlier. In fact, the former House Speaker apologized to Robredo and admitted that once he was her critic. Recall that the former Speaker even filed an impeachment case against Robredo. As for Robredo, she said that Alvarez has nothing to be sorry for and that this is normal for public servants to have different views on certain issues. Here's what the Vice President had to say.
Meron siguro kaming hindi pinagkasunduan in the past, pero ang parati ko din sinasabi na ang pinakamahalaga yung mga bagay na pinagkakasunduan nyo, hindi yung mga bagay na hindi nyo pinagkakasunduan.
Gretchen, the vice president, also welcomed the party's support, saying that when she decided to run as an independent candidate, she already opened herself to all possible endorsements. Gretchen, Robbie?
Jacob, of course, we also heard that Partido Reporma is still pushing for Senate President Tito Soto as Vice President. What happens then to Robredo's running mate, Senator Kiko Pangilinan? Kasama ba ito sa usapan?
Yes, Robbie. Reporma still supports Soto's vice presidential bid. In fact, Alvarez said that there's a big possibility that they will campaign for a Leti or Lenny Tito tandem. But while Robredo welcomes the party's endorsement, she also said that her support for Senator Kiko Pangilinan is still firm. Robbie, Gretchen?
Maraming salamat. That was Jacob Lazaro reporting live from Tagum City, Davao del Norte. And while we are still in the topic of endorsements, that's how presidential candidate and Senator Manny Pacquiao described Energy Secretary Alfonso Cusi as trapo after his PDP Laban faction endorsed Ferdinand Marcos Jr.
Pacquiao even insinuated that Cusi is not using his head, pointing out that PDP Laban was formed to stand against the Marcos dictatorship. In a press briefing in Isabela, Pacquiao pleaded with other PDP Laban members to carefully think about their endorsements and how it's a slap in the face of the party to have its members supporting the very rival of their party.
The senator still thinks that it's better to wait for the COMELEC unbank's decision as to which PDP Laban faction will be declared as its legitimate wing. The COMELEC admits that they have yet to resolve the matter.
I don't think na makakadesisyon agad ng COMELEC yun dahil busy na naman malaki yung eleksyon. Pero kung mag-desisyon natin, mas maganda. Ngayon, hintayin muna natin yung decision sa COMELEC para mas maganda.
In other news, taxi operators are asking for a 20 peso increase in flag down rates as the transport sector continues to reel from the past weeks of rising oil prices. JC Cosico with this story.
Gassing up remains a huge heartbreak for taxi driver Reiko Gaspay. While pump prices had a 12 peso rollback this week, he said this still does not offset the series of increases.
Gagaso ako ng 1.5, 1.8, tapos close ko minsan 2.4, 2.5, pinakamataas.
So na-okay mo magkano?
Minsan 70, minsan 300, minsan 500. Di parehas.
Taxi drivers now want the flag down rate in NCR to be increased. The Philippine National Taxi Operators Association is calling for a 20 peso hike, putting flag down rate at 60 pesos.
Para kung sakaling bumaba ulit at bumalik sa dati, normal na presyo, ang presyo ng gasolina at ng diesel, madali rin tanggalin.
The group adds the 6,500 fuel subsidy for PUV drivers is not enough. That's why taxi drivers favor an increase in flag down rate instead. But some passengers are not cool with the proposal.
Hindi natin din masisisi yung mga taxi driver kung ba't sila magtatas gawa din ng mga oil price hike po ngayon, di ba? Kaya nga lang po, isipin din nila yung mga empleyado na katulad namin, na hindi siya sasapat. Kasi kahit kami sa salary, wala namang increase na nangyayari.
Kaltas ulit do sa transport allowance.
The PNTOA will file the petition before the LTFRB next week. Asked for comment, the regulatory body said they will follow the rules and procedures on petitions, and once filed, they have 60 days to resolve it. The LTFRB added they will consult economic managers regarding the proposed 60 peso flag down rate. LTFRB data showed that as of February 24, 2022, there are over 21,000 active taxis in Metro Manila. For News 5, JC Cosico, we are One News.
For the big story in sports, with the imminent return of the UAAP men's basketball, two schools are said to be the teams to beat. As per tradition, before every UAAP season, men's basketball coaches pick their top teams to beat entering the highly anticipated Season 84. And it comes as no surprise that the two teams are the Ateneo Blue Eagles and the UP Fighting Maroons. Ateneo will come into the season as the reigning champions, having yet to lose a game in over 2 years. UP, meanwhile, is poised to have a deep run this season after securing several top prospects. The good news for fans is that they don't need to wait that long for a match between the two, as UP and Ateneo are set to face each other on opening day. Meanwhile, in tennis, world number 1 Ashley Barty has decided to retire from the sport at the age of 25. Barty cited the fulfillment of her tennis goals and fatigue from touring as her reason for retirement. The Australian has been world number 1 for more than 2 years and retires with 15 titles, including 3 Grand Slam singles. When asked about her future plans, Barty said she will spend more time with family and plans to help young Indigenous Australians in sports. Time for another quick break. When we return, President Duterte is said to have met with frontrunner Ferdinand Marcos Jr. in Malacanang to share his experience and insight as outgoing president. Meanwhile, Kris Aquino makes a rare appearance in a Robredo Pangilinan rally in Tarlac. And a pink welcome. Labor leader Leoni de Guzman is welcomed to Iloilo by supporters of the Robredo camp. These big stories after the break.
You're still watching The Big Story. I'm Robbie Alampay.
And I'm Gretchen Ho. The palace says President Rodrigo met up with candidate Ferdinand Marcos Jr. to talk about his experience as chief executive.
The meeting comes after the Cusi faction of PDP Laban announced its support for the unit team in the 2022 polls. But is this an endorsement from President Duterte? Let's get more details from News 5 senior correspondent Maricel Halili. Mase, do we have details on when this meeting happened and what exactly was discussed?
Robbie, we still don't know the exact date of the meeting between President Duterte and presidential candidate Bongbong Marcos. What we know so far is this. Based on the statement of acting presidential spokesperson Martin Andanar and Senator Bongo, his closest ally, it was a productive meeting between President Duterte and Senator Marcos. Senator Go said that the president was really into the meeting. As a matter of fact, 80% of the conversation, it was President Duterte who did the talking. That's according to Senator Go. They said that President Duterte shared his experiences as a president to Senator Marcos. He also gave him advice, and he also expressed his hopes that the next president will continue his administration's program. Senator Go said that maybe this meeting is one of the reasons or one of the factors that was considered by the political party of President Duterte, PDP Laban, to endorse Senator Marcos to be their presidential bet. But as to whether or not President Duterte will also endorse Senator Marcos, we actually asked Malacanang officials earlier if we should interpret this meeting as an endorsement coming from the president, but there's no response yet from Malacanang until now. Robbie, Gretchen?
Okay, so Mase, while the president's endorsement remains pending, Marcos Jr. just got for himself today another set of supporters, this time from the National Unity Party. How did that come about?
That's right, Gretchen. Yesterday, there were photos that surfaced showing that presidential candidate Senator Marcos had a meeting with more or less 60 members of NUP. Present during the meeting were NUP President Joe Barzaga, Lakas CMD President Martin Romualdez, and Camarines Sur Representative El Rey Villafuerte. They actually did not confirm yesterday that they will endorse Senator Marcos. They only made the confirmation this afternoon. They said that they will formally endorse Senator Marcos as their presidential bet. They believe in the vision of the Marcos camp for unity in the country. In return, Marcos Jr. said or expressed their appreciation to the members of NUP.
All right, maraming salamat. News 5 Senior Correspondent Maricel Halili.
In other big stories around the world, after a month of missile strikes and on-ground attacks from Russia, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky is calling for global protests to demand an end to the invasion. Zelensky is urging Western leaders and NATO members gathering in Brussels to stand in solidarity with Ukraine. In the meetings, the U.S. is expected to issue more sanctions on Russian political figures and oligarchs. Meanwhile, Singapore has lifted its COVID-19 restrictions for all vaccinated travelers starting April. Fully vaccinated adults and unvaccinated children will be allowed to enter Singapore without having to undergo quarantine as long as they have pre-departure tests. Singaporean Prime Minister Lee Hsien Loong called it a major milestone in the aviation hub's efforts to live with COVID-19.
The Kakampinks were in for a surprise last night. Despite her medical condition, the Queen of All Media, Kris Aquino, made an appearance during the presidential aspirant Vice President Leni Robredo's grand rally in Tarlac.
I only found out yesterday na sa Tarlac pala ang rally ni VP Leni. So, sabi ko, I'm going. Nobody can stop me. Magandang gabi, Tarlac!
Joining the TV host on stage were his sons Bimby and Josh, as well as actress Angel Lacson. During the rally, Chrissy revealed that her brother, the late former President Benigno Aquino, wrote a letter addressing the Vice President.
Sinabi ni Noy na sa'yo ko nakikita yung sincerity at yung ability na unahin ang mga tao bago sarili.
Before leaving, she introduced Robredo as, quote, our future president.
Bye!
Supporters were also chanting Laban Kris in support of the celebrity amid her health condition. For News 5, MJ Marfori, we are One News.
Partido Lakas ng Masa Standard Bearers Caliote de Guzman and Walden Bello made their way to Iloilo, where they were warmly greeted by supporters of Vice President Leni Robredo.
The two were surprised when Kakampinks suddenly cheered for them when they were passing by their campaign rally. De Guzman and Bello even went down their van to shake hands and take pictures with some of Robredo's supporters. Let's take a look at that interaction. Marami na ring fans itong si Caliodia, no?
At saka, I mean, that puts a cheerful scene behind some pretty big developments in the elections today.
And I actually love seeing it when people from different parties come together and respect differences. I mean, not just in person, but also online. I have friends who want to vote for this candidate, another friend who votes for this candidate, and they all call on for respect, for voicing out and their differences, and that's how democracy really is.
And kaya naman eh. And one day, you might not be able to imagine it now dahil bangayan ng bangayan, mainit ang labanan. But that's what elections are all about as well. Darating at darating tayo sa punto na yan na kailangan tayo magrespetuhan.
Amen. And that's what we are going to fight for and strive for. Well, that wraps up today's big story. Catch us again tomorrow at 8 p.m. on Signal Channels 8 and 250.
Please like our Facebook page, One News. For more in-depth analysis, visit our webpage, onenews.ph. Mask on.
Wash hands.
And stay safe, Philippines. I'm Robbie Alampay.
And I'm Gretchen Ho. We are One News. Have a good evening.